It is the first day of the year, a crisp, beautiful winter morning in Bangalore. I am standing on my balcony, the cool air against my skin, waiting for the first rays of sunlight to paint the world anew. As I breathe in this moment of quiet, my thoughts are with you. From the deepest corners of my heart, I send you and your loved ones my most heartfelt wishes. May this year bring you the health, happiness, and fulfillment you have been longing for. But before we embrace the hope and promise of this fresh start, let us take a moment to acknowledge the heartbreaks of the past. I need you to know this. Whatever burden you have been carrying, whatever blame you have been shouldering, I want to assure you that it is not your fault. It never was your fault. And it's time to let that weight go. Don't let anyone judge you for not being able to regain your health as if it's a personal failure. They may say, often behind your back, that it is due to a lack of self control, discipline, or because you're eating too much or moving too little. Trust me, I have been there, and I assure you, it's none of those. It is not a personal failing, despite what you may have been led to believe by your family, friends, or even your doctors. I believe we are entirely and solely responsible for how our life turns out to be, whether personally or professionally or our health. Yes, for some of us, turning around or making positive changes might be more difficult than others, depending on where we are starting from. But wherever you are starting from and whatever you have, that is all you have to work with, including all the difficulties, misfortunes, tragedies, and catastrophes. And if you keep blaming all that is there for you to work with, you will never make any progress and can even deteriorate. Is that fair? No, but that is the reality. You are not responsible for where your health journey or even life's journey starts, but you are solely and entirely responsible if you make no progress towards your best possible self. As the new year begins, many of us will once again make promises like, this year I will take care of my health and reclaim my vitality. Yet, sadly, most of us will fail once again. I want you to know that it would not be and never was your fault. Do you know why? Because most of the advice you have been given is fundamentally flawed. Popular culture and even mainstream are full of medical myths, more myths, in fact, than in fairy tales. These well meaning but misguided recommendations often cause more harm than good. This, in my view, is one of the most cruel and most dangerous tragedies of modern health culture. These myths sound so logical and so intuitive that we never question if they are really true, even when they fail us again and again and again. For instance, advice like cutting down on fatty food and reducing portion size to lose weight. If you are working out or walking around the block every day, or eating less and moving more diligently, but still struggle to lose weight, control your blood sugar, or lower your blood pressure, it is time to ask why. Why aren't things getting better? Even worse, you have likely seen cases where things take a severe turn. I'm sure you know someone who eats as we are told, exercises, never smoked or drank, yet developed cancer, suffered a heart attack, or dealt with autoimmune diseases. It is time to admit that something is fundamentally wrong with our approach to health and well being. It is not serving us the way we hoped. I am not claiming to have all the answers, but I am committed to trying to change and improve lives all around me. Just as I transformed my health, and the health of my loved ones. I will do everything I can to guide and support others. I will serve as many people as I can, as best as I can, for as long as I can. There are three fundamental problems with our current health and well-being paradigm, which I call the great gap, the great conflict, and the great indifference. These problems prevent us from achieving optimal health. I am doing whatever I can to make people aware of these fundamental issues and make everyone curious enough to act and do whatever they can to correct it, so they don't have to accept poor health as something inevitable, or merely staying alive as normal, and can have a really thriving, vibrant life. To be honest, I think the majority of us are actually suffering or sick, either already diagnosed or yet to be diagnosed. Please remember, just the mere absence of a diagnosed disease is not the same as being healthy. So, what are these three fundamental problems? The great gap, the great conflict, and the great indifference. The first fundamental problem is the great gap. What does that mean? It refers to the gigantic difference between the slow pace of biological evolution and the rapid stride of technological progress. Evolution unfolds over millions of years, while technology advances in mere decades or just years. This mismatch creates an inherent incompatibility. Our biology can't keep up with the drastic changes in our living conditions, food, water, environment, and everything that interacts with our body and mind. As technology makes life more convenient, it also pushes us farther away from evolutionary appropriateness. Our evolution cannot keep up with our technology. This growing gap between how we evolved and designed to live and how we actually live is the root cause of most, if not all, chronic diseases, including diabetes, cardiovascular conditions, Alzheimer's, cancers, and autoimmune disorders. The second fundamental problem is the great conflict. So, what exactly is that? We use weak evidence for strong recommendations. Consider this. Our ancestors thrived for hundreds of thousands of years without protein powder, almond milk, chia seed, whole multigrain products, or zero cholesterol vegetable oils. They lived on red meat, whole eggs with the yolk, and saturated animal fats. Now, suddenly, just because of some weak studies based on even weaker correlations, funded by parties with conflict of interest, we are told to abandon these real foods and adopt entirely new and even opposite diets. The result? We follow the advice that not only contradicts our evolutionary past but also fails to deliver real health benefits, and in my opinion, actually detrimental to our health. The third fundamental problem is the great indifference. What do I mean? Over time, we have become so resigned that we accept the misfortune of poor health, lying to ourselves that this is normal. We never question the advice we have been following so diligently for decades, even when it yields little to no meaningful results. We never question why the shopping list of medications is increasing and not decreasing. One would imagine if a treatment is actually making us better, then once I start taking, let's say, two medications or for some health problem, after a month or after some time, it should come down to one or no medications. That is, if the treatment is working. It should not increase from 2 to 3 to 5 and even more. Instead of seeing our medications decrease over time as we heal, we watch our prescriptions grow. Why don't we ask why a child who has never touched alcohol develops fatty liver disease? Or why someone who never smoked or drank is diagnosed with cancer? This collective indifference, this reluctance to question is a form of cognitive decline that keeps us trapped in poor health. So, these three fundamental problems, the great gap, the great conflict, and the great indifference, are stopping us from achieving our best possible health. But how do we find our way back to health? Three fundamental steps in this journey helped me and my loved ones regain our lost vitality and experience what it feels like to truly be alive. There is a huge difference between merely staying alive and thriving. Trust me, I have lived both. I used to be very sick all the time. I was 142 kilograms or 313 pounds. I had high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and so many other problems. Now I'm feeling and doing better in my 40s than I did in my 30s or even in my 20s. So, what are these foundational steps? These steps are the awakening, the acquiring, and the acting. The first foundational step is the awakening. What am I talking about? It is almost like breaking a spell, almost like waking up for the first time and truly seeing what is happening all around us. This is all about really observing what is happening all around you, being curious enough to ask questions, and having an open mind to seek and understand the answers to these questions. In this step, you ask, why is it that you are not getting any better even after you followed every instruction and advice diligently? Why it is that ideas that seem so simple and intuitive, like eating less and moving more to lose weight, don't work? Or why you had to start insulin injections to treat your type 2 diabetes, even if you had taken oral medications and followed standard dietary advice diligently and accurately for years. We need to ask if what we assume to be true is really true, or if we just accepted it merely because it is repeated by so many people so many times and for so long that we forget to ask why it is not working then. This step will lead to the second step, the acquiring. So, what do I mean by the acquiring? It is about finding the answers to these questions that emerge from the first step during the awakening. Here you need to learn how to separate fact from fiction, how to unlearn and relearn about our health and what is actually unhealthy, and what is just a myth and what is truly healthy but misjudged as unhealthy. Not just that, sometimes incomplete or inappropriate advice can do us more harm than good, such as having vitamin D3 to fulfill the deficiency but not having vitamin K2 with it to manage calcium handling in our body, or treating type 2 diabetes, which is mostly a case of already having too much insulin, by injecting even more insulin, which is appropriate treatment for type 1 diabetes but not so much for type 2 diabetes. In this step, we truly dig deep looking for answers, and we learn to separate correlations versus causations and identify research with conflicts of interest versus research based on objective, empirical, reproducible evidence. Once we truly break free from the dogmas that never served us well and see beyond the current dominant paradigm, it will give us confidence. The confidence we need to swim against the mainstream and will lead to the next step, the acting. Trust me, we will need every ounce of confidence in this step. So, what do I mean by the acting? This is all about action. Until you reach this step, you must have learned, unlearned, and relearned a lot of myths and information. Some or even most might be contradicting. They might contradict your lifelong and dearly held belief. And going against these can be scary. I know it took me many months and ultimately a crisis to push me to act on these newfound insights. I have been doing my research and finding actionable insights for years. But once I knew what I had to do, and actually doing it took a few months of self deliberation. Knowing is obviously not enough. You have to act. To act and live the evolutionary appropriate way in a world where doing the opposite is the norm would be difficult. You can be seen as a contrarian by people all around you, and it is okay. It is better than okay, where a lack of health and vitality is common. Being a contrarian is exactly where I want to be. We do not think critically anymore about our health, and we have handed over the responsibility of our health to others. And with that, we have given away ownership of our own health and well being. We are too focused on taking care of the sick, not preserving or recovering health. We are good at trying to put out the fire once it is raging, but we don't spend enough time to stop the disaster before it ignites. I, for one, do not want to wait till the crisis emerges. I did not want to remain in poor health. I did not want to repeat the same advice that didn't serve me. I wanted to change and get better. But just wanting is not enough. So I acted and things improved for me. If you want your next year, next 3 year, or next 5 years to be better or even different than your last year or last 5 years, you need to think and do things differently. You cannot do more and more of the same things expecting a different result. Gaining health is mostly about correcting our biology to align with our evolutionary past by manipulating our exposome. So, what is exposome? It is the totality of environmental exposures we encounter throughout our lifetime from conception onward. This includes all the external factors: what we eat, what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we touch, what we think, and their interactions with the body and that influence our health. I want to let you know that it was never your fault, at least till today. But it will be if you are still planning to repeat the exact same advice that never served you well again and again and expect a different outcome. If you would like me to show you what and how I recovered my health, you can get in touch with me. My contact details are in the description. I wish you and your loved ones a very happy new year, and may you achieve your best possible health.